I think there's been a recent bit of a slowdown in terms of total volumes and value, maybe in the recent past in 2016 versus 2015. But then what you have to understand is that these investment cycles also have a cyclical nature to themselves, right? So there is only a certain number of investable opportunities and assets, in the overall healthcare ecosystem. So you will see certain surges happening over a couple of years, and then it's slowing down a little bit, and then picking up once again in the times going ahead. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the recent slowdown that we see over the last 1 year. I think that's more of a cyclical thing that's playing out. So I think when potentially acquisitive companies are looking at investment opportunities or acquisition opportunities, I think the first thing that they would ideally want to consider is this complementary to my business, and are there significant synergies, right? So as a multi-specialty hospital group, if I'm looking at a diagnostics asset, for example, okay, that's an example of a great synergy playing out, because that adds on to my overall business. It also gives me access to a larger pool of patients who potentially can translate into hospital patient opportunities for me going ahead. So that's an example of a great synergy playing out. On the other hand, if you're looking at, let's say, a multi-specialty hospital player looking at a chain of dental clinics, that's possibly an area which is more like an add-on that's happening, but no potential synergies playing out in a big way on either side, because there are no patient synergies, there are no market synergies also playing out in a big way. So synergies is probably, when you're looking at it from the corporate perspective, the extent of synergies that you can derive either on the revenue side or on the cost side would be one of the critical factors that people would consider when evaluating healthcare M&A opportunities. So I think when healthcare companies are looking at potential acquisition opportunities, there are 2 or 3 different kinds of drivers that they would consider. One is, very clearly, would this particular acquisition or investment give them access to a customer group or a geography or a market that they originally did not have access to, right? So it's completely complementary in nature, and it allows for them to actually have a quicker scale up or ramp up of their business, okay? This is especially important in the healthcare context, because typically, healthcare business models take longer periods of time to scale up, right? So if you're setting up a hospital, or even if you're setting up an asset-light outreach model in healthcare, typically to have a ramp up in your overall patient footfalls and volumes, it takes a certain period of time. Versus that, if you have an acquisition opportunity or a merger opportunity where you're looking at an asset which already has a ready base of doctors with great market connect and patient connect, that allows for a much quicker ramp up of your overall business, right? So in the healthcare context, therefore, the opportunity to acquire something that allows for a quicker ramp up of your business, especially in new markets or new geographies, is a great driver. I think that's something that they definitely consider. I think I can immediately, think about a couple of challenges as far as healthcare M&A is concerned. The first bit is really the scarcity of truly professionalized, corporatized assets. Right? If you take away the top 10, 15, 20, healthcare players in the delivery space in India, then you've got a long tail of really, smaller players who are very localized in nature. Really doctor entrepreneurs coming together, setting up shop and catering to the local market. And not all of them have very well-evolved capabilities as far as professional services, processes, people, technology are concerned, right? So that becomes a significant barrier in terms of you being able to go after some of those opportunities and really consummate them, because as a corporate chain or as part of a large healthcare group, you have certain barriers with respect to entry barriers with respect to what kind of organization you need, what kind of process maturity you need, what kind of technology maturity you need. And the very fact that not many healthcare assets out there actually have such evolved processes or people or technology becomes a barrier towards your actually evaluating or even consummating healthcare deals. The second challenge that I can think of here very clearly is healthcare is a business which is also fairly local in nature. It's basically customized to the needs of the local market. What I mean is that specifically in certain markets you will find practices with respect to referrals, patient doctor connects, being very customized to the needs of that market. I mean, what happens in, for example, North India is very different from what happens, for example, in the southern part of India. And you can take any healthcare specialty. You can talk about diagnostics, you can talk about healthcare delivery, hospital models. They actually work pretty differently from one part of the country to the other. Now, in this scenario where you are having customized people, process, technology playing out in each different micro market, your ability to drive standard systems, protocols, processes, technology across a large network becomes a bit of an issue, right? So in many cases, what we end up seeing is that healthcare acquisitions end up leading to a situation where you've got a motley group of assets, each with their own culture, each with their own technology, each with their own processes and systems, but no true theme or no true integration happening on the technology or the process side across the network because of the ingenuities that are there in each one of these markets. Right. So, in an undersupplied health economy like India, there would continue to be opportunities around building multi-specialty hospitals, obviously in relatively underserved pockets. So even in the top tier towns or metros, there would be underserved pockets or regions where you can still make economically viable and scalable multi-specialty hospitals. So that would continue to be a large investment theme, especially for the group of investors who are looking at large ticket sizes, because many of the new segments within healthcare, so to say, have not really scaled to that great an extent. So if somebody is looking at a $50 million, $100 million plus kind of an investment size, they would typically be looking at multi-specialty hospital opportunities amongst others, right? So that would continue to be a dominant investment theme as you go ahead. Now, one of the key things that kind of affects the opportunity for multi-specialty hospitals is the fact that these are capital heavy models. Okay, so capital efficiency is typically low, your return on capital employed is typically low, and that walks a lot of investors. So what is now emerging in contrast to that are basically asset light outreach models as well as single specialty models. A good example would be something like an eye care. Your capital efficiency in eye care is far higher than what you would have in multi-specialty hospitals. So your capital is actually better spent in creating a certain quantum of revenue, and your ROCEs and IRRs are also significantly better in eye care than what you would have in other formats of healthcare, right? So that therefore has become an interesting investment theme for many investors in healthcare. Similarly, I mean, if you look at an enabling theme, something like diagnostics, I think diagnostics is going to be a very dominant investment theme, even as we look ahead. So you already have the big four who have been there, done that, scaled and built significantly large diagnostics businesses in India. But what we are beginning to see is the emergence of regional assets, regional chains of radiology as well as pathology centers with extremely good, patient connect, doctor connect, market connect in those local communities, and therefore scaling up fairly large, meaningful businesses in those individual markets. The third opportunity that comes to my mind is another example of a single specialty, which is mother and child care. Mother and child care is once again pretty capital efficient. It's relatively light compared to multi-specialty hospitals. There is a phenomenal market opportunity out there because there is this clear need for experience birthing kind of an opportunity or experience birthing kind of services. Similarly, specialized pediatric services is not yet taken off in a big way. So there is this opportunity to take that kind of a specialty outside of a multi-specialty hospital and come up with a chain of scaled and unit level viable mother and child care centers. So those in my mind would be really good examples of even single specialty models, mother and child care, opthal care. Then you've got diagnostics, which make a lot of sense even from an investor's perspective beyond multi-specialty hospitals. I think both multi-specialty and single specialty have their roles to play in the years to come from a service delivery perspective. So multi-specialty, as you see, panning out in urban India, in the top tier towns and metros, you are seeing an evidence of oversupply already happening in some of the key urban centers. If you take a Delhi NCR or Hyderabad or Bangalore, there's a phenomenal amount of asset development, infrastructure creation that has happened over the last decade or so. Right. Having said that, there are many underserved pockets, both in urban areas as well as in smaller tier towns and cities, that can still benefit from these setting up of multi-specialty hospitals. So, long story short, I still believe that there is enough and more of an opportunity of setting up corporate multi-specialty hospitals in underserved pockets in urban areas in India. Single specialty from a model maturity perspective is probably much less mature at this point of time compared to what you would have in multi-specialty hospitals. So multi-specialty hospitals, you already have a great proof of concept, you have great evidence of scalability. In the single specialty space, there are only 2 or 3 areas which come to my mind which have been able to create the evidence of economic viability at a unit level and create the evidence of scalability. Once again, a great example is eye care. So eye care chains, we've seen some degree of success with eye care chains in India, with both their economic viability having been proven at a unit level, and many of these eye care chains also managing to scale significantly, not only in their own individual regions but beyond their core home regions as well. So that's a very good example where we are beginning to see what could potentially happen with other areas of single specialty also. So as we go ahead, you will see similar kind of scale opportunities playing out with mother and child care in oncology. Diagnostics is not really a single specialty, it's more of an enabling theme, but once again, I do get the feeling that diagnostics is a case of glass half full at this point of time. There is enough headroom for even diagnostics to grow further and become even more corporatized as you go ahead. Let's talk about what are the 2-3 big changes that one can expect in Indian healthcare panning out over the next 5 to 10 years. The first one that I would expect is there is going to be greater penetration of insurance, both government as well as private insurance over the next 5 to 10 years. So at this point of time, you roughly have about a quarter of the Indian population covered under health insurance, and once again, out of that 25%, you're basically seeing only about 5% to 6% covered by private health insurance, and the rest is covered by government health insurance, right? Now, that basically translates to the fact that there is a large proportion of payment which is principally out of pocket in India, as far as healthcare spending is concerned. My sense is that over the next 5-10 years, that is going to change in a big way, both because the private insurance piece is going to pick up as far as its penetration is concerned. B, also because government is pretty focused on enhancing its overall healthcare coverage and going after especially the economically underprivileged sections of the population state by state, and having very specific and focused healthcare schemes for them. So with healthcare payment models changing, what will actually happen is that the business model of healthcare providers, hospitals and other kinds of providers will also change, because today when you look at hospitals, essentially what they're worried about is how do I get my individual consumer walking through the door, right? And they're principally looking at a very large proportion of cash patients, so they would do their promotions, their doctor tie-ups, their associate nursing tie-ups out there in the market with a view on how I can make that individual consumer walk through the door. Now tomorrow, when your payment models start shifting towards insurance models, right? So both government as well as private, the whole way in which healthcare providers do their market outreach, the way they connect with these insurance agencies and TPAs, that's going to evolve. That's going to mature and change in a big way, right? So that's the first big change that I expect to happen. The second big change that I expect to happen is really in terms of Indian corporate healthcare providers evolving and coming up with better structured clinical protocols and pathways. Okay, currently it's just not there simply because it is extremely doctor driven. So when you're looking at cardio or ortho or onco or neuro, take any one of these specialties, how you basically diagnose a problem, how you offer your therapeutic services is very, very doctor dependent, right? Now what's going to happen over a period of time, and I can already talk about corporate healthcare chains in India, is that they are going to invest in creation of certain standard protocols and pathways, which would then be reapplied across their whole network. There would obviously be leeways for individual doctors to take their own decisions or calls, but once again, outcome measurement and kind of refining your whole therapeutic services on the basis of that is going to be a big change area over the next 5 to 10 years. The third thing that's going to happen is that currently healthcare data, both clinical and non-clinical data, is basically sitting in silos. So they don't talk to each other. So each private player is kind of holding on to his own data. Even in his large expanded network, there is very little exchange of data that's happening between the different points in the network. Now, once again, over a period of time, what you can expect to happen is that you will have more evolved electronic health records being created, where there is going to be greater data exchange across the network for a given private provider. And on the government side of things, you will see evidences of electronic health records being developed at a district level, town level, city level, and then all of that being added up to a state level. Now that will change the whole ball game altogether. I mean, simply because you will now have large communities of users, which is patients and their families and doctors, all plugging into these communities and exchanging health data, both clinical and non-clinical, right? It would also create the opportunity for you to do analytics on this data and then draw out meaningful decisions that you can take, both business as well as clinical, on the basis of such analytics.